Hello, this video is going to cover asexuality, sexuality in general, and a few other topics that I might deviate into because I might go off on a tangent. So if you don't want to listen to any of this or feel uncomfortable with the topic, please move on to another one of my videos. I'm going to take a brief moment here to explain why my videos have disappeared off from the past. I decided to take most of my videos down, one, because they were getting unwieldy. I had like over 200. Two, a lot of the topics and stuff that I discussed were no longer valid or were too far in the past, and so I just took them down. A couple of them I took down because a friend of mine recently told me that he was no longer comfortable with me using his name or talking about him in a detailed sense. Not that I ever really, talked about him in detail, but I did used to use his first name. So it's out of respect for that. There are a couple of them where I kept them up even though I used his name because it was either a very short blurb or there wasn't any detail. So from now on I will respect his wishes. Some stuff went down. It has nothing to do with me disrespecting him or anything like that. He had given me prior permission to use his name and just is revoking it now. So the girl in LA, I think is no longer talking to me, and it has a lot to do with the main topic of this video. Now, I found a few different websites that I'm going to read from, so bear with me, about the topic of asexuality. I'm going to start with Wikipedia first, because that's what most people go to for their information. And it says here, asexuality or non-sexuality is the lack of sexual attraction to anyone or low or absent interest in sexual activity. It may be considered the lack of sexual orientation, or one of the four types thereof, alongside heterosexuality, homosexuality, and bisexuality. A study in 2004 placed the prevalence of asexuality at 1%. Asexuality is distinct from abstaining from sexual activity and from celibacy, which are behavioral and generally motivated by factors such as individuals' personal religious beliefs. Sexual orientation, unlike sexual behavior, is believed to be enduring. Some asexual people do engage in sexual activity despite lacking a desire for sex or sexual attraction due to a variety of reasons, such as desire to please romantic partners or desire to have children. Acceptance of asexuality as a sexual orientation and field of scientific research is still relatively new, as a growing body of research from both sociological and psychological perspectives has begun to coalesce. While some researchers assert that it is a sexual orientation, others disagree. I don't think it's a sexual orientation. Anyway, various asexual communities have started to form since the advent of the internet and social media. The most prolific and well-known of these communities is the Asexual Visibility and Education Network, or AVEN, which was founded in 2001 by David J. So that's just the general, the first 4 paragraphs of the article on Wikipedia. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I did look up the Asexual Visibility and Education Network to have more, more information for those of you who are interested in watching this video. So, during my search for things to read to you to explain in this video, I ran across this one article called 13 Myths and Misconceptions About Asexual People, Part 1. This is Part 1 of it, and it is on Quereka.com. That's QUEEREKA.com. And I'll read it to you. From my first post at Quereka, this is written by Courtney, I thought I'd explain a bit about what asexuality is and what it isn't, by addressing some common misconceptions. First off, a definition. At its most fundamental level, asexuality is the absence of sexual attraction. The term also appears in biology, but we're talking about the orientation. Even within that definition, there is room for maneuverability, demonstrated by the increasing prominence of terms such as demisexual and gray A. For simplicity's sake, I will refer to all of these orientations under the umbrella term of asexuality. It's difficult to summarize what it means to be asexual, beyond the little or no sexual attraction caveat. There are possibilities as numerous as people. It is estimated that 1% of the population are asexual. And, wow, that's a lot of people actually. What I hope to dispel is that all asexual people are the same, or that we're broken in some way, or that we all fall into a stereotype beyond the asexual people love cake stereotype. But then again, who doesn't love cake? I like her. Here are a few myths and misconceptions regarding asexuality, accompanied by my attempts at busting them. So, here we go. Number 1. Oh, so you're celibate. Celibacy and asexuality are two different things, or are two different, a bit superficially similar things. Celibacy is where a person abstains from sex either voluntarily, such as a religious vow, or involuntarily. The important thing is that they have a desire to have sex that is suppressed somehow. Asexual people have no such desire. Not experiencing sexual attraction is an intrinsic part of them. Celibacy is about behavior, while asexuality is about underlying feelings. Asexual people do not make a choice to be asexual any more than gay people make a choice to be gay, and so on. And it isn't a case of them being unable to have sex. Some people give asexual people credit for saving themselves or exercising self-control, but there's nothing to save or control. 2. The purpose of life is to procreate. You must be ill or damaged in some way. This is always lovely to hear. Some people take evolutionary theory or the religious book of choice to extremes. Life has so many facets beyond going forth and multiplying or passing down our genes, I can't even begin to do them justice. It's bizarre how they all of a sudden they are all of a suddenly forgotten by those trying to make asexual people feel inadequate. On a side note, don't you think we have enough procreation going on already without trying to force asexual people into doing it too? Yeah. Regarding the second point, it's a sign of how sex is held in such high regard in our society that anyone who expresses no interest in it is seen as having a problem that needs to be fixed. Because denoting orientations as disorders has gone so well before. No sensible person will deny that loss of sexual desire can be a symptom of underlying problems, but being asexual is not an illness. Think of it this way. Some people are naturally more sexual than others. Why can't that extend to having no sexual attraction at all without becoming an illness, or a symptom of childhood abuse, or some other source of concern? How do you know if you've never tried it? This doesn't actually apply. This next point is something that doesn't actually apply personally to me, but here we go again. Point number 3. How do you know if you've never tried it? The same way straight people know they're straight without having gay sex, or gay people know they're gay without having straight sex, or any person knows that they don't want sex with a certain person without actually doing it. As I mentioned before, the key thing is attraction. This sort of question also ignores the fact that some asexual people have in fact had sex, or masturbated, or if they're demisexual, can experience sexual attraction once an emotional connection is formed, and they haven't magically turned sexual, just like someone who identifies as, for example, a lesbian wouldn't be turned straight just by having sex with a man. Though, word to the wise, don't randomly ask an asexual person intimate questions about their sex life. It's not that they're a prude, it's just incredibly rude. There's a chance an asexual person might shift their identity, but generally people come to asexuality having examined themselves quite a lot, since it's a relatively invisible orientation. Even so, doubting anyone's orientation is kind of a douchey thing to do. Conversely, if terrible movies have taught me nothing else, they've taught me that sexual people don't have to have sex to want it. Let's see. Point number 4. I met an asexual person who was in a relationship. They must have been lying about being asexual. Relationships are more complex than simply sexual attraction. There's romantic attraction for starters. Asexual people can identify as having a romantic attraction to other people. Homoromantic, heteroromantic, biromantic, etc. Or not, which is, asexual romantic, or aromantic. More importantly, there is the fact that relationships don't have to be sexual or romantic to be meaningful. Friendships or family relationships can even be more fulfilling. Another myth is that asexual people can only form relationships amongst themselves. Many asexual people enter relationships with sexual people, though the trick, as with any relationship, especially one where sex drives don't match, is communication. Some asexual people will do sexual things for their partner, or even be sexually attracted to them if they're demisexual. You have no right to know the details just because you're curious. Number 5. Come off it. You're just gay and in denial, or straight and don't get any too young to make that sort of statement. I'm going to need a list within a list to deal with all this fail, as she says. Number A. Well, it's letter A, not number. Many asexual people grow up being misread as gay, or even believing they are gay. Learning about asexuality and finding you fit into it can be a real turning point. It does seem that if you're not aggressively heterosexual, you're automatically gay, and if you deny you're gay, you're repressed. Don't you think it would be easier for a closeted gay person to come out than go through constant scrutiny by identifying as asexual? Letter B. Asexual people are no more or less desirable than sexual people. Our orientation is not a defense mechanism. I theorize that part of this misconception is down to the fact that we engage in behaviors that traditionally attract people somewhat less, since we have less desire to attract them, but that's just common sense. Letter C. I won't deny that members of the asexual community seem younger on average than others. However, I think this is down at least in part to how invisible asexuality is, and how it's prominently an internet community. The Asexual Visibility and Education Network was only founded in 2001 after all. Many gay people know they're gay from a young age, and we don't want to try to force them back into the closet until they're old enough. How old is old enough anyway? So don't do the same to asexual people. I would go so far as saying the younger a person can know themselves fully, the happier they'll be. They won't have to go through years of believing that something is wrong with them. A commenter made a helpful addition at this point. I think it's also important to recognize that there are plenty of older asexual people out there. It's just that the older people are less likely to find the community because they're less likely to spend a lot of time on the internet, and they're hidden behind their online aliases when they do. So unless they specifically point out their age, you wouldn't know how old they are. Letter D. Remember what I said about doubting someone's orientation being a douchey thing to do? I love that. Part 2. Number 6. You hate people having sex, you must be scared or think you're above them. The vast majority of asexual people do not hate sex. In fact, a lot of us are very sex positive, just as long as sex positivity doesn't mean negativity directed at us. Frankly, some asexual people do personally find sex a bit disgusting. This is understandable when you think about it. But even these people don't believe no one should have any, unless they're specifically misanthropic, in which case they don't represent the rest of us. Perhaps asexual people get a bit bored of how sex saturates our culture so completely, and how certain famous TV writers equate asexuality with being boring. But this is not the same as hating sex. On a similar note, only the most arrogant or misguided asexual people believe that sex is an indicator of a person being any lesser. Most of us acknowledge it can be a wonderful experience, it is just not for us. 7. You're not queer, you're just trying to pretend you're oppressed. The purists. I've heard people say that asexual people identifying as queer will distract attention or resources from real causes, or that there are too many letters in the acronym already. Some even claim that trying to co-opt the past suffering of other queer people or are minimizing the problems others face. These are all offensive and inaccurate statements. I will be examining these sorts of attitude in an upcoming post. I understand whole degrees exist to debate the definitions of queer, and I'm only a science student, but here's my definition. Queer people are all the people who aren't simultaneously cisgendered and heterosexual, and who want to identify as queer. I do not believe that anyone is obligated to identify as queer, but I also do not believe that anyone should be excluded because they make others feel uncomfortable or they're not queer enough. I will not deny that asexual people's experiences are quite different in many ways to those of other queer people, but that is not a disqualifier. The subset of asexuality where the queerness is most at issue is heteroromantic and aromantic asexuality. People of these orientations are afforded a bit more straight privilege, but so are other members of the queer community. That doesn't change the fact that they can identify as queer as they wish. A hierarchy is the last thing the queer community needs. Besides, you don't think it's oppressive to grow up in a culture that constantly tells you you need to get fixed? That tells you you're repressed, or heartless, or must have been abused, or denotes you as gay against your wishes, and while hopefully avoiding veering into the oppression Olympics, I ought to point out that the corrective rape of asexual people is a thing that exists, and reactions so far indicate that maybe there would be a more active asexual discrimination if a few people were aware of its orientation. A few more people were aware. Number 8. You've just not met the right person yet. Well, this may be true of a small minority of asexual people. I'm given to believe that sexual people are aware of being attracted to people even if they aren't in a relationship with them. This attraction simply does not arise in asexual people, or if it does, only does so after a sufficient emotional connection has formed. I suppose asexuality and bisexuality are similar in this regard. They are both disproportionately seen as transitory phases which erases and devalues them. Number 9. You're just socially inept and incapable of love. The vast majority of asexual people are perfectly capable of love, but remember that love comes in all sorts of forms. Just because we don't experience sexual attraction doesn't mean we're cold and unfeeling monsters, nor do we just need a bit of a confidence boost. Perhaps I'm not the best person to address this because I am socially inept, but I can assure you that my orientation and personality are not linked in that way. There are plenty of socially inept sexual people and plenty of socially fluent asexual people. Though perhaps you'd be socially inept too if you'd grown up experiencing homophobic bullying while you also knowing you weren't gay, and felt like an incomplete person for not experiencing an allegedly vital part of life. Some people go so far as to insist that all asexual people are autistic, which wins them bonus points for being offensive to neuroatypical people by erasing their sexualities. Some asexual people are autistic, some autistic people are asexual. Sexual orientation and social behavior are separate things. Number 10. I admire you. You must not have any problems. Our decision to abstain is not a decision to be admired. It is just what comes naturally. While we're at it, can we please stop seeing a person's sexuality as having any intrinsic link to their morality? To an extent, asexual people do have fewer problems. When I hear about the relationship woes of some of my friends, I feel lucky in some ways to not be caught up in that world. However, this discounts the fact that many asexual people do engage in relationships. Not to mention being asexual itself can cause problems. See the rest of this article. Number 11. You're missing out. Just as I'm sure straight men are missing out on a lot of awesome gay sex and so on, you can't miss out on something if you intrinsically don't desire it, no matter how much anyone else insists. Here's the thing. Asexual people are no more defined by their lack of attraction than sexual people are defined by their attraction. Just because you see us talking about a lot on the internet doesn't mean that there is all there is to us. At the moment, we're in the awareness-raising stage of the asexual movement, so naturally we're going to be vocal about that aspect of ourselves. There is more to a person than who they let into their bed, and this is no less true of asexual people. To some people, though, I don't experience sexual attraction means the same as I don't ever do anything except stare at walls and think about all the sex I'm not having. Oh man, I hope I'm actually recording this. Yes, I am. Okay. Number 12. You're just trying to be different. Lots of people feel that asexuality is a trend that people only engage in to go against the grain. I wonder if they're the same people who think that of bisexuality too. There are easier and better ways to be different. Believe me. Our differences are natural. Dismissing them as childish phases only makes things more difficult for us. 13. I don't care about you not having sex, therefore there is no point in blabbing about it. There are bigger problems in the world. Well, tough. I wish asexual people didn't have to be so vocal about our private lives. Just as I wish we lived in a society where no one needed to come out. But that's not the way things work. Particularly in a society that is all about doing it. There are plenty of things that I don't care about, but they don't encroach on me, so I either ignore them or give them a chance. If you're still not convinced, look at it this way. The more we blab now, the less we're going to have to blab in the future. Finally, while there certainly are bigger problems in the world than lack of asexual awareness, the same could be said of virtually everything. Asexual awareness aims to make life easier for the estimated 1% of people who are asexual and change some attitudes regarding the importance of sex in living a fulfilling life. We do not claim it is the biggest problem in the world, but it affects us, and we are the ones most qualified to talk about it, and hopefully change things. As someone who has experienced the pain of feeling less than a person because I didn't have adequate information, I can't see how that isn't a worthy cause. So, basically, that covers everything I've been dealing with for a couple of years now. When it comes to people that I'm dating, not understanding, people that I'm trying to date or people I have been dating, not understanding what I'm trying to tell them when I say that I don't, I can look at pictures and not feel anything. Like, I know that these people are attractive, but I don't feel attracted. I tried to explain it to somebody, or, one of my friends, well, two of my friends understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. One of them because she's exactly like me, and the other one because, he's known me for 7 years and has met people like me before. Sorry. Eyelash. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish making this video and I'm gonna tell everything, and then I'm gonna use this link. I'm gonna put it on on every single dating profile that I have, so that they can go and, along with a couple other links, so they can go and find out more information, because I'm tired of making friends with these people, telling them that, yeah, I want to have friends first, I want to develop a relationship and trust and everything with them, that sex is not a big deal for me, that in fact I just not, I don't get sexually attracted to people the way normal people do. In fact, from my previous experiences with sex and everything, I would most likely be in the demisexual area of asexuality, which means that I have to be severely emotionally attached to somebody before I can have sexual attraction. Which, when I think about it when I think about my experiences with my crushes on people, my previous relationship with my only serious girlfriend, the relationships that I've had with the guys that I've dated, all that stuff. The only time I really started feeling sexual attraction and all that stuff, even if I did sexual things with them, was after I'd already developed a severe emotional attachment to them. And unfortunately, like they talk about in the article, in American society especially, sex is a huge deal to everybody. It's very annoying, actually. Most people jump right into sex. It's like the second thing that they do, second major step that they do in a relationship. You meet, you talk, you hang out, you start to get to know each other a little bit. Might be right away, might be 2 weeks, might be a month, but you jump into sex. It's not like you go, hey, I'm getting to know you. We get to know each other. A year goes by. We start to live together, and then sex happens. Or waiting until marriage. Depending on your religious leanings anyway. And so, because there's so much emphasis on sex, and because I have had sexual experiences, it's really hard to explain to people that, yes, just because I've had sexual experiences doesn't mean that I want to have sex. And I don't like giving absolutes when I'm having conversations about my relationships, especially in the early stages, because you make absolute statements or you make promises, and then what happens if you can't keep them? Like, I don't tell people. I give people a very generalized timeline of maybe when I might want to have sex, if ever, and they think that's an absolute. They think that that's exactly what's going to happen. Prime example is this guy that I was dating. I told him it would be anywhere between 3 dates in 3 months or more, depending on how often we hung out, how much I got to know him, all that jazz. And he thought after 3 dates that he was going to get some. It's like he had selective hearing. And then when I was trying to appease him a little bit, because compromise, he wasn't satisfied with what I was willing to give at that point. So we broke up. Good riddance, really. But it's a little annoying. So there you have it, asexuality. Let me go and look up demisexuality and let you guys hear what the actual definition for that one is, okay? That way you have everything you need for that. A demisexual is a person who does not experience sexual attraction unless they form a strong emotional connection with someone. It's more commonly seen in, but by no means confined to, romantic relationships. The term demisexual comes from the orientation being halfway between sexual and asexual. Nevertheless, this term does not mean that demisexuals have an incomplete or half sexuality, nor does it mean that sexual attraction without emotional connection is required for a complete sexuality. In general, demisexuals are not sexually attracted to anyone of any gender. However, when a demisexual is emotionally connected to someone, whether the feelings are romantic, love, or deep friendship, the demisexual experiences sexual attraction and desire, but only towards the specific partner or partners. When describing demisexuality as an orientation to sexuals often mistake it as an admirable choice rather than an innate orientation. Demisexuals are not choosing to abstain. They simply lack sexual attraction until a close relationship is formed. According to one hypothetical model, a person who identifies as demisexual does not experience primary sexual attraction, but does experience secondary sexual attraction. In this model, primary sexual attraction is based on outward qualities such as a person's looks, clothes, or personality, while secondary sexual attraction is attraction stemming from a connection, usually romantic, or from status, or how closely the person is in relationship to the other. Though factors such as looks and personality do not affect primary sexual attraction for demisexuals, since demisexuals do not experience primary sexual attraction, such factors may affect romantic attraction as with any other orientation. Demisexual is also sometimes used as a synonym for other kinds of persons falling under the gray A umbrella. Demisexuality differs from gray asexuality in that demisexuality is a specific sexual orientation in between sexual and asexual, where gray A is a highly unspecified catch-all used for anything between sexual and asexual that does not fit. Demisexuality may make forming romantic or sexual relationships more difficult for some people. Demisexuals often make first impressions with sexuals of being just friends, which may make the sexual value of the relationship less. Demisexuals often have rocky relationships with asexuals because the demisexual's feelings may become more sexualized with time, which the asexual may find inappropriate or unexpected. In either case, having a better understanding of one's own orientation and how it differs from one's partner's orientation may help facilitate communication to clear up misunderstandings. So basically, like I said, if I form a strong enough attachment to somebody, I usually can develop sexual attraction for them. Which is why when I talk about things like getting a crush on Claudia Black, I get all flustered. It's because I got an emotional attachment to her characters. Specifically, Aaron Sun and Morrigan from the Dragon Age series. Or when I read my romance stories, like the Dar and Carrie series I've mentioned before in my other videos. I get emotionally attached and drawn into the characters. So, yeah. It makes relationship hunting hell. Because I have to start out, fortunately some of the people I have been trying to get to know do understand it. It makes it so that I can look at a person and go, oh, they're kind of cute, because I have standards I have methods of figuring that out without sexual attraction, and I need to get to know them. I know I'm babbling. Anyway, I'll close this off, as my mom says I'm babbling, and I hope this helped a little bit in bringing more understanding to what I'm talking about when I tell people that I'm just not that into sex. I will talk at you later.